Alright, what is up guys? This is Ryan from Elevate Security, and in this video I aim to address one of the questions I've gotten in a recent video, and that is when it comes to low-hanging fruit and how to avoid those infamous pesky rabbit holes that the OSCP is known for, and some of these more difficult CTFs, and certainly on the job as well, would be known for. So rather than just have like one of those walk and talk vlog style videos and talk about some strategies to avoid rabbit holes and how to identify low-hanging fruit and stuff like that, because that's a term, low-hanging fruit is a term that's thrown out a lot in this space. Rather than just explaining it, I wanted to give you guys a sort of hands-on look at this different stuff and to determine like what could be low-hanging fruit and stuff like that. And so to illustrate this, and this might be a multi-part series here, we'll just see where it goes from here, but in order to illustrate this, I've set up a Metasploitable VM here, Metasploitable 2, which is a Linux VM. And you can get this off of the Offensive Security site, you know, the same company that runs the, which is the same company that runs OSCP and all that. You can grab that off their site, the VMDK, and import it into VirtualBox or whatever you're using. But anyways, I have that running, and now I have my Kali machine here. And I made the font bigger for you guys so you can see a little better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run an Nmap on that. And that was, well, okay, I kind of forget the IP address, so I'll go off this ping that I ran earlier on it. And so I'm going to be running an Nmap. For the demonstration purposes, I'm not really going to worry about saving it or anything. We'll call this quick Nmap. And so I'm going to run my basic one, SCSV, which I think I need these flags over here. So we're just going to get a quick understanding of what is running on this box before we proceed. And while we do that, we can go ahead and create a window for our full Nmap scan, because the thing about Metasploitable is it has a lot of things running, a lot of open ports on it. So after we complete a quick scan, we're going to go ahead and queue up this, this full scan here. Was it 1 or was it .2? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, we're basically, the way we're going to tackle this is like we did in that previous video. I think it was on Bashed, or maybe it was just on the hands-on hacking one, where there's a lot of common ports. And the way that I know if something is low-hanging fruit is basically what service is running. There's certain services that I know have historically had more serious vulnerabilities, like RCEs associated with them, and there's certain ports that don't have those things, or maybe they normally provide information that I could use, such as gathering credentials and stuff like that, to further exploit the system through some other means. But a lot of this knowledge is stuff that I've kind of accrued from raw experience, but I think I can really distill that down for you guys in a way that can allow you to save some time here. So this did complete. I'm going to come over here now and run this one, get that going. Always want to have scans running in the background. That's a great way to avoid being destroyed by rabbit holes, right? The worst thing you can do if you're stuck in a rabbit hole, because let's face it, you don't always know if something's a rabbit hole. There's no 1000% way to know if it's a rabbit hole or where you're supposed to be going. But if you do get into a rabbit hole, you're much better off having if you had all this recon going in the background, because then even if you say worst case waste like 3 hours on something that turns out to be not the correct way in, well, at least you have all this other information that you can go off of from then, so the time wasn't completely wasted. Worst thing you can do is spend 3 hours down a rabbit hole and then be like, all right, now let me do some recon on some other stuff now, and then you have to wait on that, right? That's the worst case. But yeah, like I said, tons of open ports on this box. So let's just step through it here. The first thing that I see is FTP, the file transfer protocol. Now, because I ran default scripts as I would recommend, I see that anonymous FTP login is allowed. So instantly, what this tells me is that potentially there could be some information on this accessible via FTP that could allow us to log into the system potentially. Like perhaps there's SSH credentials on there, or maybe we have the ability to upload files to the server and then access them on a web server. I don't know if this is a web server yet or not. Probably is, but so when I see something like FTP, I'm not thinking RCE off the bat. I'm thinking one of two things. I'm either thinking that there could be some file upload functionality that, if that is accessible through some other means, it kind of relies on that we could potentially upload a shell onto the web server and then trigger that shell to run. The second part is key there, trigger the shell to run, because if you cannot trigger it to run, then it doesn't matter if you can upload it or not, you're not going to be able to get a shell that way. That is like the best case scenario. The second thing that I'm thinking is that maybe there is some sensitive information that is accessible that we could read off from the FTP, or like files we can download on our machine that we can use to compromise the system. Maybe that is credentials, maybe that's a hidden port or something, or hidden folders or files, subdirectories that exist on the server, any of those things. So that's what I'm thinking with FTP. Now, actually, let me just stop. There is RCEs on this too, I guess I should say. I believe, and this is just off the top of my head, I believe VS FTPD 234 is actually vulnerable to an RCE, and I'm pretty sure that there's like a Metasploit module for it. So usually you won't encounter, because I think there's very few versions of any kind of FTP software that's straight up vulnerable to RCE, but I would be thinking that when I see this, and that's just from experience. There has been some, just point a script at it and get a shell kind of exploit associated with this. But usually that's not something. But anytime you have this kind of granular information here, and you have a particular software and the version of that, I mean, there's no point in not looking it up, right? I mean, there's no point in not at least being like, okay, let me come here, open up a web browser, and see if this is vulnerable, and if so, to what degree, right? So the way I like to do it is just a simple search like this, right? And then I see instantly backdoor command execution. So this is your RCE here, and there's a Metasploit module associated with it, and it's this one, and you just get a shell right away. So didn't take us very long of looking at recon to already be able to get a shell on this box, but I mean, that's the point of Metasploitable. It's meant to be exploited in many different ways. Perfect target for this kind of example video here. And so now let's step through, right? Next is SSH. This is one that is one of the most secure protocols, because remember, not all protocols are created equal, and some protocols are definitely a lot more vulnerable than others. So this might take me a little while to step through. A lot of this video series is going to be stepping through these different ports, but this is what you need to know if you want to understand how to avoid rabbit holes, what's a low-hanging fruit, what's not. Typically, SSH is not what I would consider a low-hanging fruit, because it's a pretty secured protocol. There are no, there are no RCEs that are known, at least out there, established known CVEs that are related to RCE. So you're not going to be able to auto-pwn something off an SSH. Now, a lot of times in CTFs, OSCP, when I see SSH, one thing that triggers in my mind is, okay, there's probably going to be credentials somewhere that we need to find, whether it's through FTP, whether it's through getting admin on the console CMS on the web server or something like that, right? And then find credentials somehow, you know, anywhere. That's where you really got to do your proper recon, look for stuff. There's probably going to be some credentials somewhere that will allow you to SSH in as that user, and then from there, normally privilege escalation from that user account to the root account. So just my experience with CTFs and OSCP and stuff, that's what it tells me. So yeah, this video is getting kind of long already, so we'll cut it here. But when we come back, we're going to keep going through the rest of these. There's definitely some really good stuff here. I hope this was of value to you. I know it was a lot of explaining, but this is really important if you want to save yourself. You know, pay yourself up front with bearing through these kind of lengthy explanations, because I guarantee you it's going to save you time in the future with OSCP and whatnot. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.